Tonight, on The Good, the Bad, and the Unknown, Don Knotts questions his sexuality, reunites with his best friend Andy, and tries to take Leslie Nielsen to the moon. Roll the intro. Hello, boys and girls. This is your old friend RJ City, and I'm back with another episode of The Good, the Bad, the Unknown, where I will take one performer who means a lot to me, and I will pick one of their works that is very good, one of their works that is very bad, and one that a lot of people don't know about. And of course, today we're talking about my beloved Don Knotts. Your Don Knotts tolerance may vary depending on who you are and what you've seen. He's known for very often playing a nervous person. He was very good at that, and a lot of his movies are generally speaking the same character. He was born in a small town named Morgantown, West Virginia, where he grew up with his bipolar father, who used to chase him around with a knife. It was not a very pleasant childhood, and to escape, he got into show business, and he started a ventriloquist act, performed in his local town, turned into a comedian, and went from there. And I do want to go. It's on my list of places to go. I got to go to Morgantown, West Virginia, because there's a sidewalk plaque honoring Don. There's also two statues. One of him sitting on a bench, and another of him standing as Barney Fife. And of course, I must pay homage. So first, let us start with the good, obviously, because that's how the title goes. And the good, for me, one of his best works, is called The Love God, or The Love God, because it literally has a question mark at the end of it. In the title, it's a film from 1969. It is written and directed by Nat Hiken, who was also a writer on Sergeant Bilko and Car 54, Where Are You? So I would say a very funny guy, a very smart guy, and I think that shows in this film. However, once The Love God was filmed, before it was released, Nat Hiken died. So he was unable to see the fruits of his labor, so he wasn't a spring chicken at this point. Don plays Abner Audubon Peacock IV. He's an avid bird watcher. He's a meek, mild, typical Don Knotts character. Loves birds, loves bird watching, and he runs a magazine called Peacock. It's a bird watching magazine, and needless to say, the magazine isn't doing too well. So to save his magazine, he partners with a shady husband and wife duo played by Edmund O'Brien, who you may remember won an Academy Award for The Barefoot Contessa, and Anne Francis. And they're a sleazy couple who take his magazine and turn it into an adult magazine, kind of a parody of Playboy, if you will, still called Peacock. The double entendres with birds are endless. The magazine is immediately successful, and since Abner is the face of the magazine, he becomes this, unwittingly and unwillingly, becomes this hip, swinging bachelor, Hugh Hefner type character, and defends his First Amendment rights, which is very weird. The music, the whole score is by Vic Mizzy, who you may also know does the theme for Green Acres. Green Acres is the place to be. And of course, he also does da-na-na-na, which is the Addams Family. They sound similar now that you're thinking about it, but it's a very good score. The reason I like this, it's one of the rare films that marks a very adult turn for Don, getting up into the double entendres and the sophistication of First Amendments and sexuality and all that business. You don't really see that from him. He's most often kind of a Disney family kind of guy. He was always very clean cut, although I've heard a lot of naughty things about him in real life. Even on Three's Company, to be honest with you, even though that show was a little risque in premise, he does play it, fairly straightforward. I would say even Norman Fell was perhaps a dirtier landlord. The other thing I love about this movie is that the style and the colors and the fashion is phenomenal. It's very hip, swinging 60s. The colors are beautiful, and they dress him up in the most ridiculous silk outfits and trench coats and these wild colors. It's very stylistic. And if you go type in like Don Knotts on Giphy, some of the GIFs you will see, like the first ones that come up are all from The Love God because they're so ridiculous. It's very much a fish out of water. I'm not talking about the incredible Mr. Limpet. It's a departure for him in a good way, and I wish he did more of it, and I think he did a very good job. So for me, that would be the good selection for dear old Don. Now moving on to the bad, of course, we all know he played Barney Fife, Deputy Fife, in the Andy Griffith Show. Some people call it Mayberry, even though it isn't called Mayberry. It's the Andy Griffith Show with the... We know the whistling. What you don't know is that there were a lot of spin-offs and reunions and remakes of certain things that, you know, the original series is priceless, timeless. America loved it, and it lived on. And the echo of that kind of overshadows the other bad things they did. And one of those is a 1986 TV movie called Return to Mayberry. We're in trouble already because it's 1986 and everything is in color. So immediately this looks weird. It's actually the highest rated TV movie of 1986. And after this, it did so well that they were going to make more Mayberry films, but Andy Griffith was already committed to doing Matlock. So that's the time we're at in Andy Griffith's life. So it was a change for him, too. I'm going to try to explain the premise. I'm going to explain the whole premise. So yeah, like, heads up, spoiler alert, but you all need to know the totality of this mess. First of all, Gomer Pyle is back from the Marines. Otis the drunk isn't even a drunk anymore. He drives an ice cream truck. So they're making all these alterations. They're updating these people in the weirdest ways. So Andy Griffiths is living in Cleveland as a U.S. postal inspector. My, that's exciting. And he decides to return to Mayberry because his son Opie is expecting the birth of his first child. So he wants to go be a grandpapa and go see his boy. The first, 14 minutes of this movie is Andy Griffith just running into people he remembered from the old town. It's literally like, hi, Andy. And he's like, hi, everybody. That's it. That's like and they're relying so much on, gee, do you remember these people? So, okay, here's the thing. Here's the plot. So he returns. He wants to go whatever. So he wants to spend time with his child and his new grandchild. So Andy wants to run for sheriff again, okay? But he finds out that Barney is now running for sheriff, and he's acting sheriff in the meantime. So Andy withdraws his name from the race, okay? Because he wants Barney. He loves Barn. Of course, we all do. Thelma Lou, Don's old love, his old flame, she's back in town. She's now divorced, and she wants to hook up with Barney. But Barney's being very, very coy and very sly about it. It's being a little bit of a, okay. There's also, separately, there's some hoax that some rum runner out of town pulled about a monster in the lake that's terrorizing the town. It's a play kind of on Loch Ness, and they put a bunch of dead animals around by the lake, and it's like, oh, they're eating your pets. It's really weird. Andy uncovers the plot, but makes it look like Barney uncovered the plot, so people will vote for Barney, okay? He wants to make Barney look like the hero. Okay, fair enough. But when Barney discovers that Andy is the one who actually uncovered the plot, he makes everyone write in Andy as the sheriff instead of Barney, and they do. So Andy becomes the sheriff again, Barney becomes the deputy again, and marries Thelma Lou. Opie accepts a job in Binghamton, New York, as I think he works for a newspaper or something. Oh, and here's the kicker. Aunt B has been dead this whole time. So you think, oh my God, that's so sad, I guess. Frances Bavier, who was the original Aunt B, she must be dead. So they acted like she was dead in the movie. That's great. Only she was actually still alive. What happened was she had retired by that point, and she was allegedly a recluse, a cat lady. There was a rumor that Opie tried to go visit her, meaning Howard there. What's the guy's name? I'm going to get it. Ron Howard, thank you. Apparently he went to her hometown and tried to visit her in real life, and she was like, no. Wouldn't answer the door. Nobody knew what to do. Allegedly, she died, and nobody knew about it because she's a recluse, and her cats ate her. Just throwing it out there. This is what I've heard, and I did say allegedly. But during this, she was still alive, but she did not want to participate. So what do? They kill her in this. She's already dead. And there's a part in the beginning where Andy goes and visits Aunt B's grave, okay? And hears her voice. They do the voiceover kind of montagey thing. They just recycled things she said from old episodes. A hair distasteful. And you do want to know what Aunt B is up to. And if you can't get Aunt B and she's still alive, just don't do it at all. That's an omen for sure. It's horrible, shitty, and slow in every single way. That humor does not hold up. It holds up the old black and white show if you want to run it again, and it's a time capsule of what the world was. But in 1986, it's not happening anymore. So you didn't update it, and now everyone looks weird and in color, and it's just frightening. Like, go do Matlock. Dear Lord. So, Don does an admirable job, but like, it was such a youthful, nervous character originally, and to not see it grow is very alarming. This old, nervous man it's quite terrifying. Anyway, that is my bad selection. As good as Barney Fife was originally, he didn't finish quite so hot. And now, The Unknown. It's a little-known film I like of Don's called The Reluctant Astronaut. They did it in 1967. It's his second film with the studio after The Ghost and Mr. Chicken. So, Mr. Limpet, Ghost, and Mr. Chicken. He's really, really, really on the up and up here. This is a similar movie. This is a classic family movie about a nervous person. So this is straight in Don's wheelhouse here. He's a carnival ride operator with a fear of heights. He still lives with his parents. I think he's 35. So his father, in a desperate attempt, sees a newspaper ad. I'm sure he circled it in red, and applied him just a general application for NASA. Why his father did this, I'm not really sure. Why NASA just did an open call like this, I'm also not sure. They hire him. They're like, oh, you're accepted. And he's like, oh my God, I'm going to be an astronaut. This is amazing. He gets there. They tell him, we've accepted you as a janitor. So he's dejected, but he tells his family that, oh, no, I'm still going to be an astronaut. I'm not a janitor at all. It's totally lies. So his family thinks he's an astronaut, but, he's sweeping the floors at NASA. He befriends the straight man in the movie is a black-haired Leslie Nielsen, who is not remotely funny in this, and you have to go out of your way just to see that, because you can't even fathom that is actually Leslie Nielsen, because he has such a distinct look, and he's so handsome in this, and he's so straightforward and so earnest, and you're like, oh, you get in the feels. It's very bizarre. So Leslie Nielsen plays an actual astronaut, a major or something. Donna's father comes to visit him. He wants to see his astronaut son, of course. So Don pretends to be an astronaut, and obviously comic hijinks ensue. Then, in the midst of the, space race, as America was in with the Russians send a dentist into space, I guess to prove that they can send anyone into space. That was the premise. This is where we're at in the world. Not to be outdone, NASA's like, to hell with that shit. They send Don. So Don's like, what? I can't do this. Obviously, he's very nervous. He has a fear of heights, as you know, and this is outer space. So he almost dies in space. Everything goes wrong. His family is now watching. They're proud of him. They believe in him. People who know have stopped making fun of him. This is great. But he almost dies. Things are going wrong. He might get marooned in space. So what does he do? He relies on his skills from his days of being a carnival ride operator, which is obviously a very specialized skill set, and he manages to steer the spaceship home safely and save the day, and of course, help America win the space race. Sounds like an amazing film, right? And it is, I would say, widely available, but the reason it isn't that known compared to his other films of the era is because that the film premiered just 2 days before the Apollo 1 fire that killed 3 astronauts, and the studio was naturally hesitant to widely push this film at that time. I mean, they did. It was already out. I'm sure they would have held it if it was, came out 2 or 3 days later. They put it out, but they didn't hard put. They were just like, this is just bad timing. Even though it seems to be a good film and is relatively successful, I think that's perhaps the reason it wasn't as widely distributed. Here is the best part, and if anyone has any information on this, please let me know, because I'm hankering to learn more. In tribute of his work on the film, NASA named Don Knotts an honorary recruiter, and Baskin-Robbins introduced an ice cream flavor named Reluctant Astronaut to help promote the film. If anyone has any information or photographs or anything of Don Knotts working with NASA or this ice cream flavor, I would love to know so much more about it. It would make my day. Please let me know. But in the meantime, I suggest you should check out this film, if only to see a hot-ass Leslie Nielsen. So that's where we are on Don Knotts. The good is the love god, the bad is Return to Mayberry, and the unknown is the Reluctant Astronaut. God bless Don. God bless you. I am RJ City, and this is what I'm doing with my life.
Guests of the RJ City Show, subscribe to his channel, follow him on social media, and buy his t-shirts at prowrestlingtees.com/RJ City.